Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com MLB Live Before Lock. God, I haven't done a Live Before Lock ever, maybe? I don't know. Maybe once or twice, but I can't remember the last time I've done one of these for any sport. Happy to be with you. Glad to have all of you with us, as always. It's a big day in the sports world. A lot of basketball and a lot of baseball. 8-game slate coming up. It's getting started. First pitch at 7:05 p.m. We're going to break it all down for you. FanDuel, DraftKings, a little SuperDraft as well. I'm Dave Lockren. With me, Adam Scherer. You saw us earlier this morning talking basketball. We're back talking a little baseball. How's the day going so far, man? Did you anticipate a Giannis Antetokounmpo-like stat line from TJ Warren?
I will not be saying anything negative about the flaws in anyone's game from this point forward.
It's crazy. It's crazy. The guy averages like none. I get people are hurt, but what does he have? 7 stocks?
Victor Oladipo being hurt does not make him steal the ball and block shots.
It does not make him taller.
Like, you think you're like helping out by pointing out that someone's scoring the pennant, and then he just goes out there and racks up like 20 points just off stocks.
He's got 10 rebounds too. My God. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. Let's wipe it clean. I've got some TJ Warren. I just did not expect this whatsoever, but here we are. Anyway, we've got 8 games on the docket today. Jordan Klein producing today's show. He's going to navigate us through it on the left side. So if you're jumping in late, if you got to jump away for a second, come back, you'll know exactly where we are, and you'll know exactly where you need to be if you're trying to find a specific game. But, we're starting to get to that point, Adam, where, what was it? The 24th was the 23rd, 24th was the first day of baseball. So it's been, coming up on 2 weeks. And this is where you'll start to see pitchers get mixed in, where it's not just the 1s and just the 2s and just the 3s. We got a wide variety of aces and scrubs on today's 8-gamer. My fault. Sure. There is no topic list. Jordan Klein will be doing jack shit. Go ahead, Adam.
What'd you say?
I said there is no topic list. There are no games. So Jordan Klein will be doing nothing. Sorry for giving you credit. Go ahead.
But yeah, pretty nice balance, which is nice because it's always, you get those slates with all the aces and you can't find bats, and then you get the slates where there's no pitching and you're just rostering absolute trash. So it's always nice when it starts to balance out.
All right, so say we just dive right into this one. We're gonna reference a lot of projections and ownership here because we've gotten the most recent runs of both of them. Well, ownership specifically, Top Stack Tool. And it's nice. I'll tell you what, it's nice to do a live before lock because we actually have lineups and more than you and I ever have when we do Deeper Dive or the strategy show when we have none. So let's jump right into it. And by the way, look, I'm not too familiar with the live before lock format, but we're going to take some questions at the end. I think that's how they do things around here. Philadelphia, New York Yankees, Phillies finally back on the schedule, Adam. Entire series against the Yankees was postponed following the Marlins coronavirus party. And then the entire series with Toronto was canceled. So now you've got the Yankees here at home, Yankee Stadium, hosting the Phillies. They're finally back. You've got Garrett Cole on the mound. Huge favorites with the aging right-hander and Jake Arrieta taking the ball for the Philadelphia Phillies. It seems like, to me, a pretty appealing spot for Garrett Cole. I never know what you're going to get from the Phillies offense. Oftentimes they're dreadful. Other times they come alive. The talent is there. The production, even dating back to last year, they have a pretty similar lineup outside of like Didi. It has not been there. So what do you do with Garrett Cole today? $11,000 on DraftKings.
Yeah, I think that, the matchup, it's not great against Philly, but it's not terrible either. And Cole, obviously, one of the better strikeout pitchers in baseball. Through his first couple of starts this year, the numbers not quite where they were last year with Houston. And the only reason I even bother mentioning that is that there is a chance you see some drop off here with him not doing whatever it is they do in Houston. So still a 27.3% strikeout percentage. Velocity's been fine for Cole. You're paying a premium for him, but I think it's well worth it with a pitcher this good, especially because there is an SP2 on DraftKings that you can use that makes your lineup still, it gives you money to spend on hitting.
Yeah, and I guess the rest of pitching here, just looking down the list quickly, Jacob deGrom would be the other one, and then you've got Walker Buehler against San Diego. Those are your top price guys.
Buehler on a pitch count.
I'm sorry?
Buehler's on about a 75 pitch count.
Yeah, and last time we kind of warned about that, and he ended up throwing 56 pitches in 3 2/3 innings. So, again, he's up there, but only in price only, in name only. So deGrom actually cheaper on FanDuel than Garrett Cole. Buehler at 10K, like you said, on account, so it doesn't really matter. It's going to be between those two guys. And when you're looking at ownership, I know we're not at that Mets game quite yet, but if you're looking at ownership on DraftKings, Garrett Cole coming in at 43% projected ownership right now. Jacob deGrom coming in around 15%. On FanDuel, where the prices are flipped, you've got Garrett Cole at 35% and Jacob deGrom at 15.9. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that it's really between the two. You can just go with whichever is the lower owned because they have the same range of outcomes. They're both really, really good pitchers. They're in similar spots as far as, Atlanta not being a great matchup and Philly not being a great matchup, but they're just both such talented pitchers. It doesn't really matter all that much. Atlanta has a little bit higher implied run total, so that probably drives the ownership up on Cole relative to deGrom. But I think it's a really good spot to pivot in tournaments to the lower owned.
Okay. Everyone's talking about the Phillies game being postponed for tomorrow. What did I miss? Are we talking tomorrow's slate or today's slate?
There was a very confusing tweet. Well, I mean, it said the game's postponed for tomorrow for Tuesday, but it came out at like 5:30 when everyone's thinking.
So everyone thought it was today.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. That is hold on a second. They're scheduled to face the Marlins tomorrow. Were they going to readjust that to make it the Yankees?
Yeah, they're playing the Yankees tomorrow. The Marlins are supposed to come to Baltimore.
Okay, yeah. The MLB app still has the Marlins in there. Is that for the tropical storm?
I'm assuming, yeah.
Okay.
Because it would be. I mean, it can't be COVID related, or they wouldn't be playing today.
I don't know if they're trying to do nothing they do makes sense anymore anyway. So I don't know, keep your distance after a game in 24 hours of space. Okay, fair enough. And no, we do read the chat. It's just can't get to everything, trying to look over some stats as well and, give you guys some good information here. But with the Yankees lineup against Arrieta, dude, I don't know about you, or pretty much anyone else out there, and I think the answer is going to be pretty similar. I do not have a ton of faith in Arrieta, somebody that very, very rarely is going to come out and give you a fair amount or even a strong amount of swinging strikes. You're not going to get a lot of strikeouts for him. You're at Yankee Stadium. I know there's a lot of righties, which kind of, I guess, mitigates it to some extent, right? Because the more lefties in the lineup, the worse it's going to be for him. But Jake Arrieta simply does not miss bats. Last season, his swinging strike rate came in at 7.1%, Adam. It's a terrible, terrible number. He struck out 18% of batters faced, and a lot of those were called looking strikeouts. It's an ugly spot for him to come in the Yankee Stadium and have to pitch against this team as a contact righty.
Yeah, it definitely is. If you look at his numbers from last year, because this is Arrieta's first start of this year, actually.
Yeah.
But 21.8% strikeout percentage against righties was about 6 points higher than against lefties, which is good, but it's still a below average strikeout percentage. Expected WOBA just shy of 300, didn't give up a lot of power. So, I mean, that stuff works well for him. And he is cheap on DraftKings at 6,200, but I really don't think the Yankees are a team that you need to be picking on with pitching. And they do come into this game with close to a 6 implied run total as well.
All right. Just looking at top stacks too. Where we're coming in at on the New York Yankees today. If you had to guess, did you look at where they are in the top stack tool?
No. Well, okay. I think I remember they're like top 3.
Okay, so yeah, in terms of top stack percentage or probability, they're third. Ownership, they are 4.9%. And I'm assuming all of that has to do with how expensive they are.
Yeah, for sure. And those are always the teams that I like getting to in tournaments because you typically are going to win tournaments with bats, and whichever of the really high-powered offenses aren't getting ownership because of their price tag, those tend to be the teams that I get a lot of.
Yep, and as Alex would say, pay up to be contrarian, right? So I'm with you on that one. the weather situation, and then we'll get on to the next one here. Unless you want to talk a little bit about Philly bats, I can't imagine that's something that you have a lot to speak on.
It is
but it looks like we're clear. Like we're good. There should not be any risk of weather. So people talking about Garrett Cole's only going to go 5 innings, this and that. I don't know about you, but looking at radar now, looking at the hourly, it seems that we're pretty good. Froth said we're fine too.
Yeah, if anything, I think rain late in the game, maybe.
All right. Anything else on this game? And who would you say your favorite bats are? Everyone from the Yankees?
Yeah, I mean, you prefer left-handed power against Arrieta, but they don't really have that. So, from that standpoint, it's pretty much just Aaron Hicks. But Aaron Judge obviously just crushing the ball right now, and then Stanton, if Arrieta makes a mistake, will hit it really far.
Okay.
Only about 12% slider usage for Arrieta against righties last year too, which is a positive for Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah. Even that slider wasn't generating, if I had to guess, was not generating a ton of swings and misses.
My slider would get swings and misses from Stanton.
All right. That's a good point. All right. Atlanta, New York Mets, 2 of 8 here. Hit that thumbs up if you're just joining. Helps us out a ton. Helps us combat that YouTube algorithm. We appreciate it greatly. Subscribe, hit that notification bell as well. Atlanta and New York Mets. Like I said, Jacob deGrom ownership coming in way under Garrett Cole, even on FanDuel, where he's a bit cheaper, where he's actually $300 cheaper. Yes, only a little bit. Atlanta's a good enough team, but deGrom has had success. I don't like looking at the BVP here, but he has had success against this Atlanta team in the past. Even his first start this season, 1 hit, no runs, 8 Ks across 5 innings, threw only 72 pitches, but was pacing what seemed like a pretty easy complete game shutout before he was pulled. Do you see reason to get to somebody like deGrom over Garrett Cole, just given this huge gap in ownership?
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned before, the range of outcomes is pretty much the same. deGrom's throwing even harder this year than he has in the past. He's averaged 98.7 miles an hour on his fastball so far this year, which is up almost 2 miles per hour. For the season, he's struck out 31.6% of hitters, which is about 4 points higher than Cole. So, I think realistically they project about the same. They have the same range of outcomes. deGrom a little bit more expensive, but it's not enough where it really alters your lineup. So I do think that's the spot where you naturally can just pivot and give yourself a little bit higher ceiling in tournaments in terms of because he's lower owned.
I think so too. Like he's one of the most dominant pitchers in the league. I think I said this to you last week, but coming into the season, deGrom had the best odds for Cy Young in the NL, and Garrett Cole had the best Cy Young odds in the AL. So you could argue with one of those divisions or one of those leagues is deeper than the other, but deGrom is just as capable of putting up a monster performance as anyone. So I like him here. And I think a huge discrepancy in ownership. I'm willing to get there. Mike Soroka, on the other hand, Adam, I'm just confused at how this guy is always so expensive. He is very good. If we're pricing guys on their ability to limit runs, and not give up a ton of hits, then sure. But strikeouts are king in fantasy baseball. And Mike Soroka is just not someone that's going to go out there and rip off 9 or 10 strikeouts pretty much ever.
Yeah, and that's obviously the problem. He's priced like he's priced like his strikeouts are the reason that he is such a good pitcher, but really it's ground balls. It's a good 2-seam fastball. It's a lot of weak contact, but that doesn't translate to fantasy points unless you happen to get the game where he goes 7-8 innings and doesn't give up any runs. Obviously, that's not something that we're going to bank on, though. So, if he were less expensive, it would be more appealing. And if you are the games where you do want to look to Soroka are where he's facing right-handed heavy lineups because he has struck out 24.5% of right-handed hitters since the start of last year. But you have this Mets lineup coming in with 6 lefties, including 4 in the top 6. So it doesn't set up well for Soroka's strikeouts from that standpoint either.
This game has a very low total, 3.8 implied run total for the Braves, 4.3 for the Mets. I think you'd agree, while Soroka isn't somebody that we generally look to target for DFS purposes, picking on him doesn't have the greatest results either.
No, it doesn't. I mentioned the strikeout splits between righties and lefties. That's not, he still doesn't really get hit by lefties all that much. A 131 ISO, 2 lefties, last season. So you're still not getting, a ton of power from him. Brandon Nimmo leading off at 3,800 or Robinson Cano at 3,600 would be the two guys that I have some interest in from the Mets, just because they're left-handed, they're good hitters, and they're cheap. But it's still not that I'm expecting them to have a ton of success against Soroka.
Yeah, I don't really have any bats of interest in this game. Do you have anyone from either side?
Just Nimmo and Cano, I think.
Okay. Pittsburgh and Minnesota, 47 minutes till first pitch. There's only one 7:05 game, by the way. Then a 7:10, then all the way to 8 o'clock Eastern time, of course. Nolan, if you're listening, we don't do that Central Time stuff around here. Derek Holland and Lewis Thorpe. Let's start with Derek Holland here. For the Pittsburgh Pirates, he's going to be at Target Field today, going up against the Minnesota Twins. He had a really solid start last game in his debut for the Pirates up until the 6th inning, and then he got tuned up a little bit. But he only allowed 2 hits, and one of them happened to be a home run. He had some walks as well. But Derek Holland he far exceeded what I expected him to do. And I think, man, if anyone's going to be helped in a park like PNC against righties, Derek Holland will definitely be one of them. Now you move to a neutral park in Minnesota, gets a little bit interesting. Thorpe on the other side. The Twins have a 5.7 implied total, Adam.
Yeah, it's a pretty terrible matchup for Holland. He's someone that I've kind of always believed in his stuff. When he was with the Giants, I would roster him a decent amount, probably more than most people. But this isn't the spot where you want to go there. He gives up power to righties. He's allowed a 316 ISO to righties since last year. And now you have this Minnesota lineup that is tons of right-handed power. Even the lefties in it hit lefties well. So it's just one of the best lineups in baseball, and I'm not looking to get the Derek Holland against it.
What about Lewis Thorpe? What do you know about this guy?
24 years old. He threw 27 2/3 innings for the Twins last year, made 2 starts. At AAA last year, he made 19 starts, high strikeout percentage at 29.5%, only walked 6% of it.
He's not cheap.
No, yeah, the strikeout stuff is there. He, this season, has not gone more than 2 2/3. So I'm not expecting him to go deep into this game, but the strikeout stuff does look good. So at least something to keep in mind for down the road.
Well, then should we talk about Twins bats here?
Yeah, I think that's the most interesting part of this game.
Say it again.
I said, yeah, I think that's the most interesting part of this game.
Yeah, so do I. And, taking a look at our top stack tool, Minnesota. So here's the part that might be one of the reasons you said that it's interesting. Top stack probability, 8.2%. And by the way, if you haven't checked this top stack tool out, if you are a sub, basically what Alex designed here and uses every day, and I have no problem using tools from the number 1 ranked player in the world, is he'll give you the top stack probability, the chance that they're the top stack. He'll also give you their value and what they're expected to be owned. So you can weigh it against each other. It's an awesome tool for baseball. So in this case, if a team is super high owned and they have a relatively high top stack probability, but they're way higher owned, or flip that around and they don't have the highest top stack chance, but they're way under owned, it makes them either far more appealing or less appealing, or you know what, maybe you're willing to roster them anyway, but it gives you a very good idea. So Adam, Minnesota, 8% top stack chance, 24% aggregate ownership here. That is 3 times as high as their top stack chance, and it's 5% higher than any other team in terms of ownership share.
Yeah, they look
talk for 1 second. I got to shut my door. Storm's coming in.
They look like really good values, which it's always kind of tough when you get a situation like this because they're going to be really, really popular because the pricing on them is wrong. And they're a really good team. Like a lot of times the top value teams are teams like Kansas City that you can pretty easily just fade and not worry about because it's the Royals. And if they happen to score 12 runs, it's just not that likely. The Twins, though, are one of the highest upside teams. So it's always scary when they're going to be one of the most popular teams as well. But you just kind of have to keep in mind that you're trying to win over an entire season. And so your strategy needs to be pretty consistent. And in general in baseball, going away from the top owned teams is going to be profitable over the course of the season.
All right. Just in time. Yeah, I got a storm coming in. I didn't shut the front door. What about Pittsburgh against Thorpe?
I don't think I'll really get there much. I mean, Jose Ozuna batting fourth is cheap and has the platoon advantage. But like we said, Thorpe looks like a pretty good arm. 1.2 home runs per 9 at AAA last year. So I think it's probably just Ozuna one-offs for me.
Okay. So Milwaukee and Chicago, kind of an interesting game. If you just take a look at the totals here, you've got the Brewers at 5.2 runs, the White Sox at 4.9. Carlos Rodon on the mound for the White Sox. I always thought he had a ton of potential. As you see with a lot of these lefties, he is prone to walk a lot of batters. And then Brett Anderson on the other side, I don't have a whole lot to say about him outside of it's another lefty, and he's not a high strikeout guy. He's coming off the 10-day injured list and making his debut start for the Milwaukee Brewers. Are you interested in pitching on either side of this game?
Definitely not interested in Brett Anderson. Carlos Rodon, kind of interesting in tournaments. Definitely not someone I'd look to in cash games, but he threw 71 pitches his last time out. Last season, he posted, or he always posts pretty decent strikeout numbers. He struck out 23.5% of hitters in his first start this year. It's not a good matchup against Milwaukee, obviously, but a 28% since last season, a 28% strikeout percentage to righties. If you go back to 2018 to get a bigger sample size, it drops down to about 21%. But he had started throwing his slider more last season, a 35% usage percentage against righties. So there's at least some upside for him, but it is a lineup that has right-handed power, so it's scary. You have Ryan Healy back and batting leadoff for Milwaukee as well. So it's not anything I feel super confident in, but I do think in tournaments he gives you some strikeout upside.
Okay, yeah, and it's not a park that I'm particularly fond of either. Miller Park is going to be pretty rough for opposing pitchers, lefties and righties alike, but they've both got totals up around 5. So I want to get into the bats here. I think we're better off spending our time here on hitters so we can get through these games, take some questions, and make sure everything's set coming up at 7:05. So the stack ownership right now on the Chicago White Sox is 7%. Similar top stack potential. Makes sense to me. And then you got Milwaukee all the way down there at 4% ownership. Do either of these teams stand out to you on a stack level?
I think Milwaukee's interesting at the low ownership. Like I said, I think Rodon has good strikeout stuff. I think that he's a decent pitcher when he's throwing strikes, but you have right-handed power here in Healy, Hira, obviously Al Garcia, Jed Jerko. These guys all can do damage from the right side. Christian Yelich, lefty, but obviously a good hitter. So I think Milwaukee's a talented enough offense where I don't mind getting to them as long as they're low owned. I don't think it's one of the highest probability spots on the slate. So if the ownership came up, I would shy away pretty quickly.
Yeah, talking about righties, and I know you mentioned a couple of them in here, but if you're one-offing this team and you're looking at like the Avisail Garcias and Jed Jerkos and Justin Smokes, I don't know about you, but I see this team and I look at it. Maybe this is somewhat similar to what you were just saying. I look at this Brewers team as one that could be really dangerous tonight, or also one that could strike out 10 times.
Yeah, I agree completely. And that's kind of why I think both sides are interesting in tournaments. They have a lot of power, but Rodon, when he's on, is capable of striking out a lot of guys.
All right. Top bats from either side?
Keston Hiura and Ryan Healy from the Milwaukee side. From the White Sox side, Luis Roberts still too cheap, leading off at 3,900.
I do like the Brewers here just because it's kind of surprising to me. Here, speak on this for a minute, right? I know that this lineup isn't particularly lethal, but man, I'm looking through it. DraftKings specifically. Let's say I want to roster Garrett Cole, and we'll get to the second pitcher, but for now I'll throw Montes in there at 7,200 because he's been so good to me this season. Milwaukee bats against the lefty at Miller Park. Manny Pena, righty, 2,900. Justin Smoke, Ryan Healy, he has first and third base. So does Jed Jerko. They're 4,000, 4,000, and 3,000, batting sixth, first, and fifth. Keston Hiura is expensive at 53, but this is a very, very easy team to stack. Christian Yelich is exceedingly expensive at $6,000, but Avisail Garcia is 4,400. This is not an expensive team at all. I am a little bit surprised they only have 4% ownership today.
Yeah, same here. I think that the power and the price thing is a really good combination.
What do you make of Yelich? I know people last time we talked were like, they're like, you guys fade Yelich, I'll keep playing him, right? This is baseball. And I know, and I won't even say you're wrong, but we've been doing this long enough to know, like, yes, guys get streaky. They have good stretches. They have bad stretches. But since that last conversation we had, Christian Yelich is like 0 for 19. So I don't know. Should we revisit this and go on one side? Hey, no worries at all. This is totally fine, totally normal. Or do you look at a 6K Christian Yelich and say, if I'm stacking the Milwaukee Brewers, $6,000 to get to Yelich means that I probably don't easily at all get in a Jacob deGrom or a Garrett Cole, and he's hitless over his last 19 plate appearances and 1 for 27 at bats on the season.
So I think the first part is where I would come in. Like, you don't have to have Christian Yelich in this stack just because the pricing is so expensive. And the big part of the appeal is that you can get the good pitching with the high upside stack. So I think that would be the argument for not having Yelich. You know, obviously he's not hitting well, but that's just not something that I really factor in at all. So, you know, if Carlos Rodon were some, you know, gas can righty, I would be including Christian Yelich in my Milwaukee stacks because I still think he's the best hitter on the team.
Okay. And I would ask that we are confirming news before we put it in chat, please. I honestly don't even, people are talking about, no, I'm not booting him because he's talking about Yankees game being postponed. And Adam just said like 20 minutes ago that there was a lot of confusion over that. So on that one specifically, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, let's not throw fake stuff out there if you're doing it intentionally. And if you're not doing it intentionally, make sure to confirm it first. One more thing on this game. Is Carlos Rodon somebody, because it is to me, that you worry he's going to go out there and he's going to give up 4 runs, but it's all going to be on a bunch of walks and singles?
Yeah, that's obviously the concern, but you also get stolen base upside from Keston Hiura in particular. You know, and the thing is, like, yeah, that's obviously a risk and it lowers the upside of your stack if that happens. But most or the chances of success for hitters goes up so much when they're in favorable counts. There's a pretty fine line between, oh, he walked a bunch of guys and didn't give up any power, and oh, he was in a bunch of 3-1 counts and just got absolutely lit up. So I don't think you can really knock the Brewers for the fact that there's some risk that Rodon just is nowhere near the zone.
Yep, I'm with you. I like him at that price. Try to get some Yelich in, some of them, sure, but if you're not, I wouldn't feel obligated to make sure to get that in. Anything else from this one?
Nope, that's it.
All right. As I mentioned, the top stack tool, ownership tool, player projections, the lineup builder, all of our premium articles, everything we've got on the site, all of that stuff. Well, all of the tools developed by Awesemo himself, and he doesn't just slap his name on them. He uses these tools every day. But all of our premium articles and so much more by all of the great contributors and analysts we've got at the site, all of that's half off. Half off if you use the promo code RESTART when you sign up at checkout. Use the code RESTART. It expires after today. I'm assuming we're running it through midnight, but it expires after today, Monday, August 3rd. It's 50% off everything on the site. So if you're looking to jump into some MMA action, you want our golf projections, our golf ownership, you want Ben Ross's fantastic golf analysis, and Jason Russell and all of these other guys, and you want our MMA and NASCAR and everything that's out there, because if they have contests, we've got content, baby. I'm gonna put that on a shirt. Use the promo code RESTART. 50% off. It gets you down to $45 for the month. All access, Awesemo Plus, Platinum, baby. You name it. Everything on the site at checkout. Use RESTART. It's after today. It expires, and I can't imagine we're doing anything like this in the near future. So definitely take advantage of that. And check out all the tutorial videos at awesemo.com/join if you don't feel comfortable yet. You can check out exactly what we've got going on before you dive in. Awesemo.com/join. Use that promo code RESTART. Get 50% off your first month. Everything on the site except Fantasy Cruncher. That's an add-on. Okay. Chicago Cubs, Kansas City Royals, Alec Mills, Danny Duffy. All right. Who do you want to start with here? You want to get Danny Duffy out of the way?
Sure.
All right. Go ahead.
It's kind of been the same pitcher for the last few years, where it's like when he has everything going, he's able to get strikeouts and be a really good DFS pitcher, but he's just so inconsistent in when he's able to do that that you can't really trust him at all. You do have a low total here with the wind blowing in. Not too much right-handed power in this lineup. The main concerns being Chris Bryant, Javi Baez, and Wilson Contreras. Duffy at 6,600 on DraftKings as an SP2, I think, is reasonable just because you'll be able to get really good bats with him, but not a cash game option for me and not someone that I'm expecting to do well. It's just that he's better, I think, than a $6,600 price tag. Okay. No, that's not escorts. That is esports, Jason Holland. But yes, we do have esports. If it were your site, would you offer escorts, Adam? Of course.
I figured as much. Awesemo plus package. What do you make of bats here? I'll throw these totals out. 4.1 run implied total for the Cubs, 3.5 for the Royals. So, whenever I see something like that at Wrigley, my first inkling is to see what the wind is going to look like. This would suggest that the wind is blowing in, and it is at 15 miles per hour from left field. So not great. It's also only 66 degrees there. So it might be the dead of summer, but you're not getting good hitting weather, and you've got wind blowing in at Wrigley, 15 miles per hour. We have to keep that in mind when we're making lineups and looking at this game tonight. And maybe that'll put us on the pitchers a little bit more. Probably not.
But both pitchers project pretty well for me. Like you're not going to feel real comfortable with it, but because of the wind blowing in, because of the weather, obviously it's a good matchup for Mills as well. I think that they are both underpriced for this game. Yeah. And it's just, I don't know. I don't always want to look at something like that with the weather, right? And let that completely make the decisions for me in terms of hitters. But those are really 4.1 runs for the Cubs against Danny Duffy is very low. 3.5 for the Royals, even being the Royals, is very low against Alec Mills. So I guess that leads me into my next question. What are we doing with bats here? I'm not too interested in the bats. I mentioned the right-handed power in the Chicago lineup. If you wanted to go anywhere, that's where I would go. Duffy has allowed a 190 ISO to righties since last season. Decent pricing on Bryant, Baez, and Contreras, but nothing that really stands out. Okay. And neither of these teams are going to be particularly popular at all. And then even a guy like Mondesi, who we love for a stolen base upside, he's been shoved down to the bottom of the lineup. So that makes him far less appealing than he would have been. Yeah. I don't think I get there either, at least not right now. Some one-offs aren't the worst idea. Some righty power for the Cubs. You just talked about it. I can probably get behind that. But the thing about the wind is it's not like DraftKings and and FanDuel are going to price them down because of the wind, because you don't know what it's going to be until salaries are already out. So it's not like they've been priced down for a tough matchup. They're priced for a matchup with Danny Duffy, and they still have a 4.1 run implied total. So the win doesn't get baked into the salaries, and that makes them a little less appealing, in my opinion. Anything else on this one? Nope. All right. 5 down. 28 minutes to go. Colorado, San Francisco on the bump. We've got Chichi Gonzalez making his first start of the season, and Johnny Cueto for the San Francisco Giants. I was away, I told you, at a bachelor party Friday through Sunday, and completely disconnected from the world. I will tell you, it's a weird time to do it because
like sports had just come back. Normally I would wait till like an all-star break. But when this was planned, nobody anticipated, baseball or basketball happening in August and baseball overlapping at the same time. But disconnected, got away for a little bit. Is this the first? This is the first series at Coors, right?
No, they played the Padres last week.
Okay, so it must have been Friday through Sunday.
Yep,
completely missed it. Yeah. Anyway, we're still at Coors Field. Totals in this game for both teams weighing in at 7-1 for the Rockies against Cueto, 6.5 for the San Francisco Giants. So as you can see here, an absolutely monstrous total, a 13.5 over under in Mile High, Adam. That's an insane number for any park.
Yeah, and you have two, obviously Coors Field is the best place to hit anyway, but you have two pitchers here who don't get strikeouts. And that's a big deal because everyone thinks of the home runs in Coors Field, but it's also just that it's a huge outfield, more hits fall in, you get more at bats, et cetera. And not being able to strike guys out obviously is not conducive to being able to pitch in Coors Field. You have Chichi Gonzalez, who last season struck out 16% of lefties, 17% of righties. Johnny Cueto coming in since 2018 with 17% strikeout percentage against lefties, 20% against righties, both well below average. And while neither of these teams are the best offenses, the Rockies do have quite a bit of power up at the top. And then the Giants do have a few good left-handed hitters in particular with Yastrzemski, Alex Dickerson, and Brandon Belt that can all do damage.
All right. Yeah, a one-off, Fabi. I saw that question. It would just be if you're not really enamored with the specific team, but there's maybe a hitter that you want to roster or two, two off, one off, same thing. So how much Chichi and Cueto are you going to have?
I'm really hoping 0.
Yeah, they should be the dead men. When you ran your first crunch, if you said this, forgive me, I was trying to read chat and answer some questions in there. How much of each stack did you get, San Francisco and Colorado?
I'm not sure because I ran the crunch and then I updated projections, and so I wasn't able to get to it. Okay. It didn't work right.
All right, fair enough. How much do you think are you anticipating you're going to get a lot of these guys? Normally, the quick answer is yes, but I mean, Mike Yastrzemski is 5,900. Like, these guys are extremely expensive, and as they always are. But if you're stacking this team, it is undoubtedly going to cost you a lot. And it just struck me now. No wonder the Yankees ownership is so much lower than I thought it would be. It's a Coors Field day.
Yeah,
because people are just going to pay up for. They'd rather pay. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. They'd rather pay a premium for San Francisco Giants bats because of the park than pay that much for Yankees at Yankee Stadium.
Which, I think makes sense. But I do think I'll get to both of these teams, at least looking at the numbers right now, because the ownership's high, but it's not really much higher than it should be. Both of these teams coming in right around the same top stack percentage and ownership percentage. So unless the ownership goes up between now and lock, I think I'll be getting to both teams.
Look, I know you say it makes sense, but 4 times the ownership is a lot. Like, Jake Arrieta is not very good at all. So I don't know. I guess we'll see where it comes in at. What would you say your favorite bats are right now from this Coors game? And yes, we do have lineups for both teams.
Really like Belt. He's at a discount compared to the other decent hitters in the Giants lineup. He's someone that is a much better hitter than people realize. He would have completely different career numbers if he didn't play his entire career in San Francisco. So getting him in Coors Field at sub 5K really jumps out.
How do you feel about Chadwick Trump?
Cool name.
It's a very cool name. Chadwick Trump. Pretty sure he hit a home run the other day. I swear I was watching something on that guy. I saw the name and I just thought, oh my God, that's incredible. But yeah, I don't know. Do you think it makes sense that they're going to have 14% ownership and someone like the Yankees has right around 4%?
I think it makes sense for their ownership to be a lot higher because of Coors. But the Yankees, I think, are still lower owned than they should be.
All right. Yeah, because they have very similar implied totals as well. It's just one of them's at a park that everyone loves to load up on. Favorite bats from this game? Or do you have anybody that you really, really like from this game on the Colorado Rockies side?
Dahl. I mean, 1 through 6, but I don't think any of them really stand out relative to the others. I mean, the guys 1 through 4 are all really good hitters. Murphy and McMahon both have enough power and are a little bit cheaper. So 1 through 6, I think all look really good. And then the bottom of the order is like free, so it makes it easy to stack.
Yeah, Kemp, Owings, Tony Walters. They're not great, but they're going to give you a discount for sure. And Murphy and McMahon aren't that expensive. I think collectively, the San Francisco team is almost as expensive. Might be more expensive overall than the Colorado Rockies, which is pretty wild. But whenever you have a 13.5 total, you're going to get a ton of ownership, and that's what you're getting because right now they're second and third in ownership in Awesemo's top stack tool. So we'll see if that changes. I doubt it will. Let's see if we got another run here. Actually we did. Minnesota came down. Yankees went up a little bit. Okay, nothing huge. It's still Minnesota, Colorado, San Francisco at the top as far as ownership, not necessarily in terms of top stack potential, but I guess you're right about one thing. San Francisco has the highest top stack potential on the entire slate.
Yeah, which is something that you will say however many times this year they play in cores and no more.
Yeah, maybe if it's a showdown slate.
Right.
Which wouldn't even make sense. But yeah, that is pretty crazy. 22% on an 8-game slate. Wow. All right. Anything else on Colorado and San Francisco?
No, just get to whatever bats you can.
All right. I do have something on SuperDraft, though. They are the sponsor of, a lot of stuff that we do around here. And if you haven't checked them out yet, the very simple way to do it and get free money at the same time. Just use the sign-up code Awesemo10, AWESEMO10, all one word. It'll get you $10 injected straight into your account in your first deposit of $10 or more. Or if you want $20 in cash injected into your account, deposit $100 or more using Awesemo10. There are no salaries. It is the multiplier mode. So instead of having Garrett Cole being priced at, 11,500. Well, what you would have instead is a multiplier, and he'd probably only be 1x, meaning if he scores 30 fantasy points, he only gets 30 fantasy points. Whereas another pitcher, take Carlos Rodon, for example, might be 1.8. So he scores 20 times that by 1.8. But Garrett Cole's not on this slate because it starts at 7:10, so you can finish your lineups on DraftKings and FanDuel. You have a couple extra minutes to get in on SuperDraft. DeGrom 1.1. Walker Buehler has a lower multiplier than DeGrom. That's just crazy. But there's some great value out there. Like I'll just use Carlos Rodon as an example. 1.75. So instead of saying I got value at this guy, drafting him at $6,000 on DraftKings, you're getting monster multipliers. So look for that. You're going to see them for a bunch of different teams, not from the Rockies today, not from the Yankees, but from other ones. And that helps you make those decisions. So while you can play everyone you want, you shouldn't just be playing all the guys that are the highest priced on DraftKings and FanDuel. Use that code Awesemo10, get $10 on a $10 deposit or more, or $20 on a $100 deposit or more. Go to SuperDraft.io, not Awesemo, SuperDraft.io, or download it in the App Store. SuperDraft. San Diego and the LA Dodgers. You mentioned earlier in the show, Walker Buehler will be limited to around, did you say 75 pitches?
Yeah, 5 innings, 75 pitches.
And Chris Paddock let us down a little bit because he didn't get that win against San Francisco. It wasn't bad. 5 innings, 89 pitches. Now you've got him going up in a much more difficult matchup, easily his toughest matchup of the season, squaring off against the LA Dodgers. This one's at Petco Park. But Dodgers don't have that high of a run total, 4.2, 3.8 for San Diego. And while Buehler's on a limit, he's also going to be backed by a very good bullpen. So what do you make of this one? It's not doing a ton for me on either side.
I'm not going to Buehler because he's priced up on the pitch limit. I do have interest in Paddock though, because he's priced for this matchup against the Dodgers. He's only 7,600 on DraftKings, where there are a lot of expensive bats that we like. So I do have interest in Chris Paddock just because he's a much better pitcher in terms of talent than that price tag.
Okay. Where would you put him among your pitchers right now? Top, because we've gone through a lot of pitchers, and outside of the top guys, there really isn't that much to get excited about at all.
Yeah, I think that the mid-range guys, most of them are really similar. Mills, Paddock, Rodon, Duffy, when you consider the price tag. I think those guys are all really similar plays for me.
Okay. Do you like bats on either side?
Not really. Obviously you're not looking to target Buehler. Chris Paddock is not someone I really look to target either. You always can make an argument for stacking the Dodgers in tournaments just because they're so good. So if I had to go to one team, that's where I would go, but I don't anticipate really getting much of either.
Okay. No, Yankees are not postponed. It's confusing people, man. Yeah, I didn't even know tomorrow's game got postponed. I just knew they weren't postponed today, but
I was in the middle of taking it out of all of my stuff and then realized it was Tuesday.
Yeah, very interesting. They should have waited till after first pitch,
Yeah.
Then they just would have scared us even worse. Let's close it out with this last game. We're going to spend some time on it, and then we'll have about, plenty of time to take your questions. Justice Sheffield, Frankie Montes, Seattle and Oakland. The Seattle Mariners have a 3.7 implied total, 4.9 for Oakland. When you look at Frankie Montes, he's got the stuff. He's got the potential. He's a hard thrower, sits 96, 97. His swinging strike rate in 2018 was left a lot on the table. Last year he got it up to 11.5. This year it's at 10.8. Look, he's good, but he's definitely had some problems already. For example, he's walking almost 13% of batters he's faced. He's not putting batters away when he's got a pitcher's count. There have been some clear issues here. There's a lot of that magic that you see, right? And it just isn't completely put together. But now he's got this matchup with Seattle. Sorry, EMAC, but it's a very good one. And while he faced the Angels, had some walk troubles, was okay. And then Colorado, again, okay, not a lot of strikeouts. Is this the first Frankie Montes performance of the season where we sit back and we say, all right, this guy looks good? And I don't give a shit if it's just because it's the Mariners. I just want Frankie Montes to come out here and run through them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's a guy that you and I both like a lot, but I like this matchup for him as well because for one, it is the Mariners who just aren't a very good offense. But also if you go and look at his numbers from last year, his strikeout numbers were actually much higher against left-handed hitters than right-handed hitters. And a lot of times you would see something like that and you kind of write it off. But for Montes, it makes sense. You look at he threw a splitter about 22.5% of the time to lefties, only about 11% of the time to righties. That's a pitch that had a 23.5% swinging strike percentage against lefties. So it makes sense that he's able to get more strikeouts there. He probably should throw it more to both sides of the plate, but he doesn't. So getting 6 lefties in this lineup for Seattle, I think, does actually increase his strikeout upside.
Interesting. What do you make of the fact, because I just pulled this up while you were talking, what do you make of the fact that he's not throwing his splitter much to lefties at all through his first 2 games?
Yeah, it's concerning, but he's also only thrown 92 total pitches to lefties. Yeah. So without really having any idea of whether he was ahead in counts or what the situations were, I don't want to read into that.
Yep, you're right. Yeah, if you're in and by the way, he's thrown a lot of balls. Like, I don't mean a lot of pitches. He's thrown a lot of balls. So he can be getting behind in counts and just is trying to get him over the plate. So you might be right about that, where we just don't have enough to know whether or not he was in good enough spots to be throwing that. Which, by the way, is a problem in itself.
Right.
If you're not putting yourself in a position to throw your best out pitch, then that's an entirely different conversation.
Right. But the only way I'd be concerned is if he is getting in those positions and he's choosing
still
not to throw.
Throwing. Right. Yeah, he'd be like Kyle Gibson, throw a 2-seamer in an 0-2 count. Kevin Gossman, sons of bitches. Yeah. I mean, really, man, when you look at pitching on this slate, you got Derek Collins, Sheffield, Cueto, Arrieta, Chichi Gonzalez, Danny Duffy, Carlos Rodon. Brett Anderson, Alec Mills, Thorpe, Chris Paddock, Soroka, Buehler on a pitch count. Like, Montes has to be the best SP2 for this slate, right?
I fully expect Montes to be my highest owned pitcher.
Okay. How could he not be at this point? Unless
Ownership
you're trying
would be the only thing.
Say it again.
Ownership would be the only thing, but I don't think that would be enough for me.
Yeah, I guess the question would be, is there a pivot that makes enough sense to get away from that ownership? Or would it be better just to be different elsewhere? That's serious. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, so I mean, there is pitching in that price range as far as guys that can realistically beat Frankie Montes, because you have Paddock, you have Mills, you have Carlos Rodon, but those guys are all getting some ownership as well. And so I think what's going to end up happening for me is I'm going to get a lot of Montes, and then depending on what stacks I have, I'm either going to pay up for DeGrom and Cole, or I'm going to be mixing and matching the other like three guys in that price range.
Okay. And yeah, as of now, Frankie Montes, we just updated ownership 7 minutes ago. Frankie Montes, the highest owned, not only pitcher, but player on the slate. No surprise. Him and Garrett Cole getting, a lot of ownership. I'm okay with it. Chris Paddock's getting 20% on DraftKings too. They priced him down. They baked that matchup into his salary for sure. And then you've got to come down to like Alec Mills and Carlos Rodon at the 17% range. But your point stands. I thought there would be a bigger gap in ownership. So I thought you'd see Montes and Garrett Cole up there, way high up, and then it would drop off a cliff. It does cut in half, but Paddock, Rodon, and a few of these other guys are still getting, and Alec Mills are still getting, close to 20% ownership each.
Yeah, I think that just goes from a roster construction standpoint, and they all project pretty similarly.
All right. How you feeling about Justice Sheffield?
Not great.
How you feeling about Oakland bats against Justice Sheffield?
Hang on. I didn't realize how cheap he was.
He's very cheap. And while Oakland has a very high run total, pitching's not very good. I don't really know if there's any need to get here. I
don't know that there is either, but he would be like, I would rather go to him than Derek Holland at that price point, basically.
All right. Yeah, he's cheap, but I don't know. Maybe if he's like 4,900, I'd have more interest. It gets kind of tough. Talk to me about Oakland bats, though. And then we can talk about Seattle bats, because if somebody like Montes is going to be that popular, despite him being good, we at least got to see if we can mix them in or see if there's any purpose to roster them. But we'll go with Oakland first against Sheffield. 4.9 run implied total.
Yeah, plenty of power bats in the Oakland lineup. Kana, Chapman stand out. Laureano is expensive. That I guess that's the biggest knock on Oakland, is that they are really expensive. You do have a value bat batting sixth in Chad Pinder, though.
Okay. Frankie Montes, while there are plenty of warts when it comes to his game, he does not give up a lot of power, Adam. And one of those reasons is he pitches at, O.co in the Coliseum. That's going to mitigate a lot of power. But, look at his home run numbers in 2018, 2019, even with, relatively low K rates in 18 and then higher in 19, 0.69 home runs per nine, 0.75 home runs per nine. He does a very, very good job of limiting hard contact, limiting deep fly balls. And we've clearly seen that in the results, man. Lower hard hit rate and ground ball rate's not even, his ground ball rate's slightly above average. He just doesn't give up home runs.
Yeah, it's always been, he does a good job getting weak contact. It's always just been, can he turn it into strikeouts?
Right. Last year, the answer was yes, but he only pitched half of the season for that. What did he get? Didn't he catch like an 80-game suspension?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he started the year out well, and then he got suspended.
All right. That right there is kind of my answer. I just don't see much need for Seattle bats. Montes might struggle, but a lot of that is just going to be high walk rates. Sure, balls will be put in play, but just not a lot of hard hit balls, not a lot of deep fly balls. So not really a very interested in Seattle here. There's so much good hitting on the slate that I don't think you need to get that contrarian. You can close this game and the slate out, Adam.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like in large field tournaments, you can always make the case to get to a team like Seattle against a good but not great, really, really popular pitcher. I know there's a lot of really good players that that's their strategy. They leverage really heavily against the field. I don't think I'll be getting there, but that would be the case that you make for Seattle.
All right. Hey, questions if you guys have them. We're through 8. Hit that thumbs up before you go. By the way, I'd stick around till we wrap this one up in just a couple of minutes. But if you haven't subscribed, if you haven't hit that notification bell, with all the content that we're churning out, you'll always know when new content's coming next. Unless YouTube decides not to notify you for some godforsaken reason. But we're going to go under the assumption that they're good people and that they will. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's see. A's are good low on stack. Let's see here. Oh, here's a good one. Cruz, Judge, Stanton gonna hit 6 total bombs. That's one you can answer, right?
Yeah, they're definitely going to.
Gage asked, how do I feel about the Phillies? I just not great. And I like Garrett Cole a lot. They're the type of team that'll come out there and run up the score, throw up 8 runs on him, and then they'll go scoreless against the Marlins in a 3-game series. But yeah, never betting against Garrett Cole in a spot like this. Danny, here's one from Michael. Danny Duffy or Chris Paddock?
They're really similar for me. I'll probably have similar amounts of both.
Touch on, what's up, Cantor? Touch on favorite pitcher on FanDuel.
I think Montes.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to throw this out there that we did update ownership, and Jacob deGrom is coming in on FanDuel, $300 less than Cole. Not as great a matchup, but coming in with 15% ownership. I like that, man. I think this could be a spot where Jacob deGrom makes a big difference on this slate. What else do we have here? William R. Yes. Duffy or Rodon, Adam?
Duffy, because he's a little bit cheaper.
Okay. Why would Buehler be on a pitch count? Yes, Dodgers bullpen is very good, but he was on a pitch count last time. And, well, he's going to be on one again this time. I think that's it, man. If you guys have any more, hit me with them. We got a minute or two here to go. 7:05 lock. SuperDraft, by the way, Awesemo 10. Use that promo code if you want to get free money. They lock at 7:10. The Yankees-Phillies game is not going to be on that. So, yeah. I think that'll do it for us. Oh, okay. Here's one more. Adam, from Paul. Actually, hold on a second here. Just wanted to make sure he's in the lineup, and he is. Jake Cronenworth at $2,500, batting 5th for the Padres. Is he a viable, cheap option for you?
No, I don't really see why that would get there.
I don't think so either. He is cheap, but that doesn't. Sometimes they're cheap because they should be. Walker Buehler is very good. Even when he comes out, the Dodgers bullpen is also very, very good. So, sleeper pitcher. Honestly, Matthew, there isn't much. There aren't really many sleepers. A couple that we talked about, if you were going to go there, I think Carlos Rodon is in a spot where I would hedge with some Milwaukee stacks because I think they could crush him today. Or it turns into a spot where he just walks a bunch of guys, gives up some singles and some runs that way, and you're not particularly happy about it. Or he has a good game. Carlos Rodon's got good stuff. So I think he's fine. Down at the bottom, Sheffield, Cueto, Holland, Arrieta, Gonzalez. It's ugly down there. Montes certainly isn't a sleeper, but he's good in that value. It would be Duffy or Carlos Rodon are the two guys. Adam mentioned Chris Paddock as well. I think it's 7,600. That's cheap enough. But if you're talking like deep sleepers or just value guys, Duffy's not the craziest option. He does have fair enough strikeout upside. That game has a lot of wind blowing in. Very low totals for both teams as well. Much lower than you'd think. If this wasn't for wind, I would think the Cubs would be up around 5, but they're not. So There are no lock 'em in type values or sleepers, as you call them, but I think those are the couple of guys to look at. Theo Sofianos, Dodger lefties. Dodger lefties, what do you think about them against Paddock, Adam?
I don't think it's a high probability spot, but I do think that that it's a high upside spot.
Gage, no, I don't think Soroka could break the slate. I know you're finishing up lineups. CJ wants to know what kind of beer you're drinking.
Summer Shandy.
Yeah, that's not a beer. We'll end on that. Thanks as always for hanging out. We will see you back here tomorrow on MLB Live Before Live. By the way, we're going to, hold on, chill on that music 1 second, Jordan. We got the MLB strategy show coming back by popular demand. So we'll have MLB and NBA strategy shows. We'll have MLB and NBA Live Before Lock. You're welcome. It's all free. But if you want to get the good stuff, check it out at Awesemo.com. By tonight, use that promo code RESTART. It's the last night. 50% off, half off everything we've got. All projections, ownership, tools, articles, you name it, for every sport out there at Awesemo.com/join. Thanks for hanging out as always. We'll see you guys soon. Good luck tonight.